So, like I was saying in the first part of the recording, what actually makes CBDC bad is not the fact that it is digital in terms of the version. What makes it bad is not actually the version, the digital version that it takes. Is the fact that, first, it is geographically limited, which means that there are geographical barriers that have actually been put around the currency, which means that if you cross certain boundaries, you cannot be able to make use of the money. That's number one. Number two, the rate at which you do the spending of the money means that the amount of money that you spend on something can be controlled by the central bank. Why? Because every transaction that you carry out is monitored by the central bank. So the central bank can easily determine the amount of money that each citizen is actually, making use of to carry out certain transactions, within a day or within a month or within a certain time frame. So imagine somebody who has his money and he intends to make use of his money the way he wants. And there is somebody behind policing the person, telling the person how much the person can actually get to spend within a particular time frame, and that you can't spend beyond that. So they start monitoring you from all the angles. That is the first disadvantage. The second disadvantage is the fact that there is no more anonymity, which means that it is possible for the central bank or for those in charge to block, your money, the money that you actually have in the digital version. Probably if they realize that you've been spending money on certain kind of things and maybe it really doesn't satisfy the interest of A, B, or C somewhere, it is possible that that person can take upon himself, if and only if he has what it takes, to be able to block your money. It means that you can actually have money somewhere, but it is blocked completely. You can't make use of it in the digital version because you are being monitored from a central service. That is the second disadvantage. Now, the third disadvantage is the fact that the digital version of the money is going to be backed normally by the national currency, meaning that by the real fiat currency itself. That is what is going to be giving the backing to that central bank digital currency or the software version of the real currency. Now, when I say it is going to be backed by the main fiat currency, what is the inconvenience with that? What's the disadvantage with it? The disadvantage with it is the fact that if the fiat currency gets devalued, or if the value goes down, maybe on the international market, it is also going to affect the software version that you have, which means that if you want to probably live or you want to travel to another country, maybe to do some transaction, especially like a business person, you intend to go and do some purchases using the currency of your nation. By the time you get there and want to do the conversion to have the equivalence of the currency used in the country where you want to do the transaction, you realize that the value is going to drop simply because the fiat currency itself has been devalued or has experienced a drop on the international market, which is also a major disadvantage. Now, the last but not the least is the fact that this one is even what makes it worse. This is the worst of all the disadvantages that I've been mentioning. With this one, the system is going to make it in such a way that the money that you have in the digital form has an expiry date. Imagine for a second that you've been toiling, doing whatever it is that you've been doing all through your life, and you've been saving money. And all of a sudden you are told that you've actually kept this money, maybe in the bank or wherever you've actually kept it, that it has been there for too long and that you've not been able to make use of it. And they start telling you, if you don't make use of that money, whether you are going to invest it or whatever it is you are going to do with it, if you don't spend it within that time frame, the money is going to expire. So if that date comes and passes, that is all. Just know that you don't have money anymore. So what you actually refer to as your life savings are gone and gone for good. So you don't have any money, you don't have any money again. So you have to start the process all over again, like somebody who had never had a job before. So all of you become, at the same level. You are at the same level with somebody who has never had a job, simply because you actually kept your savings somewhere and it actually went beyond a certain time frame and the money got expired. These are some of the limitations with CBDC. These are some of the elements or the aspects that actually make CBDC extremely very bad. And like I said in the first recording, this is something that is going to be employed in all the nations of the world. Between now and the year 2030, CBDC is going to be everywhere in almost all the nations of the world. Now, the question is, knowing these two major problems that the world is about to start facing, the first one, which has to do with robots, which are about to take over the world. As a matter of fact, statistics show that by the year 2030, close to about 800 million jobs are going to be lost to robots. Now, assuming that you find yourself in that number, what is your plan B? That is number one. Number two, by the time CBDC is made operational and it becomes an affair for all the nations of the world, if all the nations of the world get involved in it, because like I said, there is no nation that is going to be kept aside. No nation will have the possibility to refuse adopting CBDC because it's going to be everywhere. And there is no nation who will not want to have maybe exchanges with other nations. Imagine you have your own currency that you use in your own nation and you say, okay, because you want to avoid CBDC, you are going to keep your own currency to your own self. But then most of these nations have what we call foreign reserves. So how is your foreign reserve going to look like? In what form? Definitely it's going to be in the digital form. So which means all the nations of the world are compelled to go down the lane with CBDC. Now, knowing all of these shortcomings with CBDC and the shortcomings the problems we are going to be facing with the coming of robots, how are you preparing yourself for this era? Are you folding your hands and continuously believing in the job that you actually have now that is giving you a salary on regular basis? That's if the salary is even regular in the first place. Is that what that is actually making you feel comfortable? Or are you actually preparing for this paradigm shift? Because this is something that is going to happen in a not too distant time from now. So everybody has got to be on the alert and you start preparing for this particular period. Now, let me cite some of the disadvantages. Some of the disadvantages with the coming of robots and with the coming of CBDC. Now, these are some of the problems that are going to start rising because of this. The first one is that lots and lots of jobs are going to be lost. That's number one. Number two, we are going to start, dealing with a lot of school dropouts. Why are we going to be, dealing with a lot of school dropouts? Simply because many people are no longer going to see it necessary to go to school and learn certain types of trades or certain types of jobs. Why? Because robots already exist that are already carrying out those jobs and they are doing them efficiently and they don't require salaries and so on. So people will no longer see the reason why they have to keep going to school. So a lot of people are going to drop out of school. That is number two. Number three, we are going to be noticing a high rate of criminality. Imagine somebody who had a job, who was earning a monthly salary from it, and all of a sudden, the person's labor is replaced with that of a robot, and the person has to go back to the quarters, and he's around, he has nothing else to do. What then do you think the person is going to hold on to as a plan B? Definitely the person most likely is going to get himself indulged in criminality. And the fourth one, this one has to do with, people who are into real estate, those who are building houses and putting them on rents and so on. A lot of tenants will be finding it very difficult to pay rents henceforth. Why? Because they no longer have jobs. So landlords will be having a lot of issues with tenants and so on because people can't pay rents again. These are some of the problems that are going to be provoked by the coming of robots and the coming of CBDC. How then are you preparing yourself to escape this particular robot era? What are the preparations you're making for this particular era? Are you actually preempting this era? If you are not doing so, then be rest assured that you are actually preparing to walk into a very, very deep hole, which you might find difficult to come out of. Now, some people might want to start thinking of plan B, maybe thinking of other options that they can actually get involved with, to keep making money, even with the coming of, the robots and CBDC and all the like. Now, some people might want to get into businesses. Some might want to go into the real estate. Some might want to do what we call bank deposits. Because the major issue that a lot of people have nowadays is not even about earning money. A lot of people know how to earn money, but they don't know how to save the money and they don't know how to multiply the money. These are the three pillars, that actually characterize somebody who wants to really say he himself is a rich man. So every rich person is somebody who is capable of earning money, who is capable of saving money, and who is capable of multiplying money. But a lot of people, in our society are very good at earning money, but they don't know how to save. Worst of it, they don't even know how to multiply the money. They are just interested in doing whatever it is they are doing, getting the money. The money comes to them. But now saving and multiplying is a problem. For those who might want to think of the option of, maybe getting into some kind of business as a plan B, maybe trying to preempt, the shortcomings that we are going to be noticing with the coming of robots and the CBDC. Now, what you have to understand is whatever business you are going to put in place, you have to give between 5 to 10 years. You have to give yourself 5 to 10 years to actually start reaping benefits out of that business. And definitely you can only be able to earn between 10 to 20% per annum from that particular business. But you need to give it time, normally between 5 to 10 years. Now, for somebody who says he wants to go into the real estate domain, that even makes it a bit worse. Why? Because in the real estate domain, for you to actually be sure that you can make some benefits between 4 to 10%, you need to give it at least between 10 to 20 years for it to mature within this time frame. How many persons are willing to persevere for this long? And remember, even when you persevere for this long, the profit that you are going to be making from it per annum will not go beyond 10%. It will range between 4 and 10% maximum. Now, for those who want to maybe opt for, maybe bank deposits, like somebody who says, okay, he has money from whatever source he's getting it from, he takes it to the bank, maybe he puts it in his savings account. To him, maybe the interest that comes out from there, that is the way the person intends to build his portfolio. Now, if you do it that way, as we all know, all around the world, if it has to do with the case of a bank, that even makes it worse. Why? Because a bank will only give you between 0.2 to 2% per annum. Their interest rate is usually between 0.2 and 2%. Are you sure that with that option, you'll be capable of making something substantial as money? And before you get that, or before you can be able to say conveniently that you've been able to make something substantial from this annual profit from a bank, it means that you need to give it at least 30 years and above. It means you need to keep accumulating this little interest yearly for at least 30 years and above before it can represent something worthwhile. Are you sure that is a road you are willing to go down? That is a major question. Now, the next question is, how are you preparing yourself against all of this? So which option is actually the best? Now, I'm going to give you, some other options. Then from those options, you can be able to make a better choice for yourself. I'm not the person to advise you on which of the choices to make, but you will definitely have to make the choice from the analysis that I'm going to make. Now, this one actually gives us a brief history on the transitions that money has actually undergone, in terms of its forms and so on, in terms of utility and the rest. So from the very beginning, we had to deal with what we call trade by barter. So that actually took place sometimes around 6000 BC. As time went by, experts were able to evolve from that level into the usage of banknotes, coins, and so on. But some of the shortcomings with banknotes. Now, with banknotes, it is very possible for them to get torn. Somebody can easily tear them off. That is number one. Means that they weigh out easily. Number two, you can easily, they easily get damaged by liquid. For instance, you might have banknotes in, I don't know, maybe one of the pockets of your dress, and you dip it into water. Maybe you're washing the dress. You can get the banknote damaged. Imagine you having a banknote worth maybe 10,000 francs, and you are able to wash it off, maybe in one of your dresses without knowing. You can imagine the value that that particular banknote represents, up to 10,000. That's a lot of value. The value is extremely too high for you to lose it out. That is one of the major shortcomings with banknotes. So they easily weigh out. Now, with the coins that actually accompany the banknotes, the limitation with the coin is the fact that if you need to transport, let's say, from point A to point B, a certain sum of money, let's say about 300 million francs CFA, and you have to do that transportation in terms of coins, you can imagine how heavy that is going to be. It means that you have to rally several trailers that you have to load, those coins into bags, and then you have the trailers transport them to wherever you want them to go. So these are some of the shortcomings with, banknotes and coins. So experts had to carry out intensive studies and realize that it was better to transfer the value of these banknotes and the coins into the electronic space. That was when we now saw the coming into being of plastic cards, what we commonly refer to as ATM cards. So ATM cards are actually retaining the value of what we have in the physical, what the banknote represents or the coins. We can actually transfer them into the electronic space through what? Through the bank cards. Now we realize that has actually solved a problem because you can actually handle a lot of money, in fact, a huge amount of money on a simple bank card, and yet the weight of the card doesn't increase. It doesn't modify the weight of the card, but the huge value that the banknotes were representing and the coins as well has been transferred into that card. Now, that actually solves a problem. Like I said, it solves a problem, but again, it creates another. Why? Because the bank cards also, they are limited. In what sense? You can find yourself in an area where there are no ATM cards. So how do you make use of the money? It becomes a challenge. You might actually find yourself in an area with an ATM machine, and they tell you the ATM machine has not been filled with money, or that there is no network to pilot the machine. What do? Or the machine probably is bad. For instance, you cannot be able to make use of the machine, means that you can't withdraw cash. Yet you have cash with you, in your bank card. So that one also is a limitation. So experts have to do or had to carry out studies again in this particular domain to see how they can further ameliorate the situation. That's exactly how cryptocurrencies eventually came into being. So with digital currencies, particularly with cryptocurrencies, because when we talk of digital currencies, we have two main groups of digital currencies. You have those we refer to as electronic currencies, and we have cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies and electronic currencies are all digital currencies, but not every digital currency is a cryptocurrency. Some of them, like I said, they are electronic currencies. For instance, mobile money and orange money, those ones are electronic currencies because they represent the software versions of fiat currencies. Means that it represents the digital version of a fiat currency, for instance, the franc CFA, which means somebody who has a banknote worth 5,000 franc CFA, the person can actually hold the equivalence of that 5,000 franc CFA banknote in the digital form, maybe in his mobile money account or in the orange money account, which means in as much as 5,000 franc CFA in terms of banknote continue to hold that value of 5,000, the same thing will apply to the digital version, which is hosted by maybe a phone. So their values are always the same. Their values are always the same. Now, talking about cryptocurrencies, it is completely different. It's a digital currency, but it is not electronic in nature. Why? Meaning that it does not represent the software version of any fiat currency anywhere, though it can be pegged to a fiat currency. Now, the major difference between cryptocurrencies and electronic currencies is the fact that cryptocurrencies are actually volatile and they are operating on a system which is referred to as the blockchain. So the blockchain is actually what represents, what serves as the basis for the operation of cryptocurrencies. Without a blockchain, there is no way a cryptocurrency can actually exist. And then it is subjected to volatility, means that there are moments when the value of the cryptocurrency appreciates and there are moments when it depreciates in the market, which means that it creates millionaires, it makes others very poor also at some point. That is why you need to have substantial knowledge in this particular space for you to be able to make a lot of money. But the bottom line is there is a lot of money in this space. And then what actually makes cryptocurrencies more attractive is the fact that when you are dealing with the crypto space, it is complete anonymity, meaning that all the transactions that take place within the crypto space are anonymous. So you will never get to know exactly who as a person is carrying out a particular transaction. But the good thing is that all the transactions that are taking place can be monitored on that blockchain. Everything is registered there. And whatever transaction takes place on a blockchain remains there for a lifetime. It can never be modified. It means that everything can be tracked, but you cannot track it to know exactly who is the person at the origin of the transaction. That is the major difference between cryptocurrencies and the CBDC. Because with CBDC, they can actually track the exact person who did a transaction financially. But in cryptocurrencies, everything is anonymous because everything takes place on the blockchain. So those are some of the major differences between electronic currencies and cryptocurrencies, which are all what we refer to as digital currencies. Now you have the CBDC version of it, that's the central bank issued digital currencies. Those digital currencies are going to be in the electronic form. They are definitely going to be another category of electronic currencies. But those ones, like I earlier explained, are going to be monitored by central banks. Now, that is actually the space that we are gradually moving into. Like you see here, CBDC is going to be very, very popular as from the year 2027. A lot of governments around the world are going to start implementing, the usage of CBDC in their various economies. And I already explained the shortcomings with that. The question is, how are you preparing yourself for that particular era. So if you don't start taking measures, it's going to be very, very hard for you by the time that goes into full operation. Now, it is also worthy for us to know that right now we have close to about 4.4 billion people who are actually making use of internet services. Now, the world has a population, from the statistics that we have gotten, of up to about 9 billion. So we have close to about 9 billion human beings on the surface of the earth. And out of this number, we have just 4.4 billion of these 9 point something million inhabitants of the earth who are making use of the internet services. So you can imagine what that means, which means we still have a greater number of people who are not connected to the internet yet. For those of you who know about the story of North Korea, you know, in North Korea, that is one country in the world where the citizens are restricted from making usage of internet services. People don't connect themselves. The citizens don't make use of internet services. Even if they have to make use of internet services, they'll only permit them to do that on certain days and within certain periods. And they have particular websites that they can consult. Out of those particular periods, internet is completely taken out of the reach of all the citizens of those nations, except you are maybe somebody who is in the government, and you can only make use of internet services as a government worker because you are permitted to do something particular. Once you are done with it, that is all. You are taken out of internet services. Think of a country like that is putting a lot of restrictions, probably for political reasons. There are many other people who are not yet connected to the internet. Now, we are not talking about a higher version of the internet, which is referred to as Internet 2.0. That is what we call the blockchain nowadays. Now, the blockchain is an improved version of the internet. Within the blockchain space, there are too many things that can be done there. And right now, as we speak, there are just about 350 million users of this blockchain, which means that a majority of the people who are even contained in these 4.4 billion users of internet services are still not making use of the blockchain. Now, what is this blockchain? Like I earlier explained, with the blockchain system, there are too many businesses that can be created. With the blockchain technology, you can actually make use of it to create a permanent source of cash flow for yourself. It has several applications. Apart from, dealing with finances, there are many other things that we can get to use a blockchain for. For instance, the major underlying, thing which cuts across all the areas where a blockchain is being used is the fact that it can keep a lot of records. A blockchain system can actually handle records for so many years. For instance, there are countries that now employ blockchain services to conduct elections. So people can actually carry out elections through the blockchain application. That is number one. Number two, people can actually get to sell lands, like in some countries, to do the sales of land, to avoid this issue of a particular land being sold to more than one person. They can actually do the sale of lands using the blockchain. Why? Because if somebody purchases a certain piece of land, that information is recorded automatically on the blockchain, which means that if a second person eventually comes to purchase that same piece of land, once it gets to the records of the ministry will automatically see in its system through the blockchain that this particular piece of land in question actually belongs to so and so person. So it facilitates the process for them to be able to transfer the ownership of the land to another person. That way, it is impossible for another person to come and claim or lay claims on that piece of land, even if the person eventually goes and forges documents from somewhere. In as much as it doesn't exist on the blockchain, definitely the person will be taken out. So the blockchain system can also be employed in that particular domain. A blockchain also can be used to monitor the way money is being used, in a certain country. Maybe a particular government might decide to say, okay, we want to curb issues that have to do with embezzlement of money, people just making use of money without any traces. If you are doing in fact, if you're actually spending money and controlling it through a blockchain, it is impossible for somebody to steal money. Why? Because every transaction that is carried out, maybe money is moved from point A to point B, everything is seen directly on the blockchain. So we actually refer to the blockchain as a transparent ledger, which keeps a record of all the transactions that are taking place within that particular blockchain system. That is why most financial institutions are now beginning to make use of the blockchain. But now the real application of the blockchain is in the domain of cryptocurrencies, which means that is actually money, but it's money that has been encrypted using a certain technology which is called cryptography. That is the reason why they call it cryptocurrency. which means that any money which is actually, involved in transactions that are taking place on this particular blockchain can be traced. That is why it is given the name cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies are actually, a milieu where almost everybody around the world is expected to start moving into now. Because remember, this thing has to do with trends. When a particular era comes and passes, and there's a new one which is coming up, if you are very, very fortunate to get into the new space before many people start getting into that particular space, trust me, there's a lot of money that you can get to make for yourself. And I'm actually going to be sharing, knowledge on the possibility of somebody getting to make use of, this particular blockchain space to make so much money for himself, to create a permanent source of income or cash flow for himself. I'm going to be showing you that through a particular company. Now, statistics have shown that with the advantages surrounding the usage or the application of the blockchain technology, there are many sectors in the world that will begin to employ the services of the blockchain technology. We are going to be seeing this blockchain technology being used in the bank and finance domain, in the domains of supply chain, healthcare, insurance, energy, real estate, trade. Governments around the world are going to be making use of this particular blockchain because of the numerous advantages that actually surround, this blockchain technology. And prospections or projections are actually showing that between now and the year 2030, close to about 1 billion inhabitants of the world are going to be connected to the blockchain technology, because right now we have just about, let's say, 250 million people who are involved with the blockchain technology that is exploiting the blockchain in different areas. So between now and 2030, we are going to have the number increase up to about 1 billion, because people are gradually getting themselves conversant with, the advantages surrounding the blockchain technology, and they can actually make use of that particular technology to create permanent sources of cash flow for themselves. Now, the question is, how can you possibly make use of the blockchain technology to create a permanent source of cash flow for yourself? Now, I'm going to show you one. And that one is going to come to us through a certain cryptocurrency, which is called the Ultima token. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how you can earn these Ultima tokens daily through the usage of a blockchain, which is called the smart blockchain. So that smart blockchain is a blockchain where this particular cryptocurrency is existing. Now, the bottom line is this is a cryptocurrency that can actually give you a lot of money. But you need to have this cryptocurrency, which is called Ultima token. How do you get this Ultima token, which operates on that particular smart blockchain, which I just talked about? Now, for you to be able to get it, you can only have it by purchasing a certain technology, and that technology is called splitting. How do you purchase the splitting technology? The splitting technology is made up of two sub-technologies, which are known as mining and staking. These are two technologies that have been fused into one to give us a new technology, which is referred to as splitting. So splitting itself is a technology, it's a tool which you can make use of to acquire as many as possible fractions of this particular Ultima token, which is operating on the smart blockchain. Now, how do you go about this? Very simple. Now, just before I get to show you exactly how to get started with it, I want to do a small comparative analysis between mining, staking, and of course, splitting. Now, when we talk about mining, we have major mainstream cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin that are actually operating using the technology called mining. So they're actually employing the mining technology. You have other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum that are actually employing what we call the staking technology. Then, like I just said, our own cryptocurrency, which is called the Ultima token, is rather using a combination of the mining and the staking technology, which is called splitting, the splitting technology. Now, let's see the various differences that exist, amongst these three different technologies. With the case of mining, that's using Bitcoin as a case in point. With Bitcoin, the max supply of Bitcoin is 21 million, which means that there shall only be a maximum of 21 million Bitcoins that will exist in the world. We cannot have more than 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be in existence. And right now, as we speak, almost close to about 20 million Bitcoins have been mined, meaning they are already in circulation, which means that we have just about 1 million, Bitcoin left to be mined. That is one thing you need to know. Now, if we have to compare that with the sister coin, which is Ethereum, Ethereum has an unlimited supply, means that there is no limited supply for Ethereum. What is the case with Ultima? which uses splitting. Now, Ultima has a maximum supply of 100,000. There shall only be 100,000 Ultima tokens that will ever exist in the world. So you can see how small the quantity is. So meaning that if you have billions and billions of people who become interested in this particular asset, and yet we have only 100,000 that shall exist, you can begin to understand exactly how high the value is going to be. It's going to be a very high value asset. Now, let's go to the daily supply. Currently, we have just 450 Bitcoins that come into the market every blessed day, especially after the recent halving that was recorded with BTC. Now, what is the corresponding thing with the Ethereum? Ethereum has 1,400, there are 1,400 Ethereum that get into the market every blessed day. What is the case with Ultima? We have just 25 Ultimas that get into the market every blessed day. Now, when it comes to halving, halving is a technique that is used to reduce the supply of a certain digital asset that goes to the market with the intention of boosting the price, because the price of every commodity is defined in economics by the demand for that commodity divided by the supply. So if we can create a reduction in the supply, even if the demand remains constant, definitely the price of that asset is going to move upward. So that is also the technique that Bitcoin has been using all through the years. But its own halving takes place every 4 years. So it takes place every 4 years, or once in every 4 years. So right now we have just 450 BTCs that will be getting into the market every passing day. So in the year 2028, because we are currently in 2024, in 2028, only half of this quantity, meaning that 225 Bitcoins will henceforth be getting into the market. So when it comes to Ethereum does not have anything that has, in fact, anything like halving. It doesn't have this strategy, or doesn't have this technique in reducing the supply of, its quantity in the market. So it doesn't have that. Now with Ultima, we do have that. So it means that Ultima registers, a reduction, a halving, every year. As a matter of fact, it takes place twice. Every year, there's a halving that takes place. If currently we have just 25 Ultima tokens that get into the market per day, and we have a halving which is very close, in fact, in the month of February 2025, we are going to be registering another halving, because we've registered several halvings before getting to this 25. So which means that as from February 2025, only 12 Ultima tokens will be getting into the market every blessed day. So you see how the supply to the market further gets reduced. So these are other differences, all of these ones. This Bitcoin doesn't have any burning, it doesn't know about freezing and so on. And that is what we actually register in the Ultima, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the major differences that you can actually identify. That's ranging from the mining technology to the staking technology, and eventually to the splitting technology, using Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ultima as cases in point. So if you look here, you realize that this one has more ticks compared to Ethereum and compared to BTC, which means that Ultima has more strategies to boost the value of its growth, or to boost its growth value, than it is the case with BTC and Ethereum. That should already tell you that this is a cryptocurrency you don't want to blink an eye on. You need to go in for it as soon as possible. Now, I know the question that will be lingering through your minds is, how do we get these Ultima tokens? I'm definitely going to get there. But just before I tell you exactly how to start earning, these Ultima tokens, I'm going to first of all give you some of the characteristics. There are certain things you need to know concerning this particular Ultima token. Is a fact that, first of all, it combines two major technologies, notably mining and staking, which I've already explained. And here we do not have to deal with very large miners, meaning that we don't need mining rigs. We don't need to employ mining rigs to be able to mine the coin, like it is the case with maybe BTC, for instance. Here, we simply need to make use of your smartphone. The only thing you need to make use of is a smartphone. Once you have a smartphone, then you can be able to combine these two technologies, notably mining and staking. And another advantage is the fact that once you get involved with this particular digital assets, you are going to be receiving benefits every day for a lifetime. Imagine that you have the possibility of earning fractions of these Ultima tokens every blessed day for a lifetime. That's one advantage. How is that possible? It is through a certain technology, or it is through certain tools that the company that owns this particular Ultima token has actually made available to all its investors, or to all its affiliates, which I'm going to be giving you details on in a moment. And it is also easy to exchange, meaning that this particular Ultima token already exists on certain top-notch exchanges, meaning that you have the possibility to go and trade the Ultima tokens, on an exchange. We even have a cryptocurrency debit card, which is owned by the same company, whereby you can actually load your Ultima tokens on the card and then you take it to any ATM machine. In fact, the nearest, because it's a MasterCard. So you can actually load the Ultima token fractions on the card, and you go to any nearest ATM machine and you slot it there. And in fact, what you have inside is converted directly in terms of the currency used in the nation where you find yourself. You can equally get to trade it through P2P. That is a P2P. So these are some of the things you should know about it. Like I earlier said, it has a maximum supply of just 100,000. So there shall only be 100,000 Ultimas tokens in existence. Then currently, the available supply in the market is 40,000 and above, means that the quantities that people already have, which is circulating on exchanges, in people's wallets and so on, is at 40,000. Then right now we can talk about 6,150,000 plus transactions that have taken place ever since this particular Ultima tokens, went into circulation. So we have up to about this number of transactions that have taken place. Right now, the average price of the Ultima token on the exchange, this particular day that I'm actually carrying out this recording, is about $5,300 for one Ultima token. So that should already start telling you a lot. Now, the question that I asked earlier on is, how do you make money? How do you save it? And how do you multiply it? With this particular technology, it gives you a combination of all of this. So you will have the possibility to earn the money, you have the possibility to save it, and you have the possibility to multiply it. Now, how are all of this going to play out? I'm going to be showing you that also in a moment. It is also worthy for you to know that this particular company, the company that owns this particular Ultima token, has been in existence for the past 8 years, means that it went into operation in the year 2016. And what is the major mission of this particular company? The company actually wants to become the world's most, in fact, it wants to put at the disposal of, all the citizens of the world, one of the world's, biggest digital currencies that is operating within the biggest crypto ecosystem. That is actually the main mission of this company. So they want to make sure that this particular Ultima token becomes a mainstream currency that people can use anywhere in the world. They can use for all transactions, be it for products or the purchase of products or for the payment of services, just like we make use of other currencies. And for these 8 years that this particular company has been in existence, they have been able to show proof of concept, they have been able to show proof of business, they have been able to show proof of technology, and of course, they have been able to show proof of a market. You might want to probably know who is the main brain behind this cryptocurrency, or who is the owner of this particular cryptocurrency. He is no other person than Mr. Alex Reinhardt. This is actually him, like you can see on this picture. He's actually the person who is the brain behind this cryptocurrency. He is a blockchain engineer. He's one of the finest blockchain engineers that the world has ever known. He's one of the very best. Whenever you hear that there's a cryptocurrency conference or there's a conference on blockchain technology anywhere around the world, usually he's the only person who speaks there because, like I said, he's one of the best. He's one of the finest in that particular